like to bring to the podium fellow Rotarian and State Senator Kate Brophy-McGee.
I'm honored for two reasons this afternoon. First, of course, is to introduce our guest speaker today, Governor Doug Ducey. Second is to show off this wonderful club of such consequential service to our state, to our nation, and to the country, to Governor Ducey. So thank you, everyone, for coming. Prior to his entry into public service, Governor Ducey had a successful career in the private sector. He launched Cold Stone Creamery in Tempe and helped expand the company to 1,444 locations around the world. With his election to governor of the state of Arizona in 2014, he brought his business sense to government. Arizona's economy was struggling, and we had a $1 billion deficit. Governor Ducey balanced the budget in his first year, and he did it without raising taxes. Since then, Arizona's economy has rebounded. We've added 240,000 jobs. And with this growth has come in additional investment in top priorities, including $2.7 billion into education. Governor Ducey has also made security a top priority, creating a border strike force and sending National Guard troops down to the border. I've been privileged to work with Governor Ducey and First Lady Ducey on issues dear to my heart, including child welfare reforms, and most recently, passing comprehensive and bipartisan reforms to combat Arizona's opioid crisis. Governor Ducey is here today to tell us where we've been and to outline his future, his vision for Arizona's future. Would you please help me in welcoming Governor Doug Ducey?
Thank you, and thank you for the warm welcome, Kate. Thank you so much for the generous introduction. If you do like what's going on in state government and in the Ducey administration, I want you to know that I couldn't do it without senators like Kate Brophy-McGee. If you don't like what we're doing in our administration, just know you've got to keep Kate Brophy-McGee inside state government. I also want to say thank you for the song. That brought back some tremendous memories. We always said to young people at Cold Stone, you didn't have to sing well, you had to sing with enthusiasm. And that's what customers love. Most of those songs were written by the young people that worked inside the stores. The line would get so long on Thursday and Friday and Saturday nights that they started doing those songs so people would not leave the stores. Then people started tipping spontaneously, and we had kids that were there that started at minimum wage, and they'd leave after a hard Saturday night of 4 or 5 hours work with $50 or $60 cash in their pockets. We really attracted the best possible people into those stores, and that's kind of the mindset, not just the singing, the enthusiasm, and the customer service, but the business-like approach that I wanted to bring into state government. And Senator Kate Brophy-McGee's been a partner along the way. We've been able to do some things like extend Proposition 301, which was a funding mechanism for K-12 education, the focus on child welfare, and her real concern, and a concern I share in the Department of Child Services, that we protect these kids that are so vulnerable, that are in the care of the state. And I don't have to tell you, the state is not a very good parent. So to find foster parents and kinship parents and adoptive parents has been something that Kate has led on, and you need that out of the separate and co-equal branch of our legislature. I also want to thank your Rotary President, Randy Long, and your past Rotary President, Roger Mars, for having me. I've been to this luncheon several times. I know that this is the oldest Rotary in Arizona. It's the largest Rotary in Arizona, and it's also the 100th Rotary in the country. So a lot to be proud here, and a very positive impact on Phoenix. I'm a big believer in our voluntary organizations making the difference. Of course, I want a government that is efficient, effective, I want a government that works, and we're showing some evidence that our government actually can work. But without the volunteer organizations organized by our citizens like Rotary to help the less fortunate, the homeless, work with disadvantaged youth, and working with service organizations across the valley, we wouldn't have the country that we so love. Now, before I begin, I really want to recognize once again the passing of one of Arizona's great leaders. Last week in this state, we memorialized and honored the life of John McCain. We haven't had an outpouring of love and affection in this state for someone like that in some time. You know, I was born in Toledo, Ohio. I was fortunate enough to come to Arizona in 1982. Today, 70% of our adult population was born somewhere else. And I don't think there's any better indicator of a state that people in the most mobile country in the world pack up a U-Haul truck and they say, that's where I want to live. So those of us that live in Arizona now and call it home, when we traveled, told people you were from Arizona, they knew two big things. They knew John McCain and the Grand Canyon. And imagining an Arizona without John McCain, for me, is like picturing an Arizona without the Grand Canyon. It's just not natural. And I want to say thank you to the citizens and the workers inside state government that went out of their way, the 15,000 people that stood in line to honor him in the rotunda of the state capitol. And it wasn't only here. I think you saw the same outpouring of affection in Washington, D.C. He was somebody who really embodied the Rotary motto of service above self. He talked a lot about serving a purpose higher than your own self-interest. And I think you saw through the accolades last week that this was not a political family. This was a military family that had served our state, and I think it's something we can all be proud of as Arizonans that will be recognized with forevermore. I want to talk a little bit about what we've been able to do over the last 4 years, and then I want to talk about what the next 4 years could look like. I do think it's important that we remember that it wasn't that long ago. After I sold Cold Stone, I decided to run for state treasurer. I saw the former party chairman back there, Randy Pullen. I went and visited him in Republican Party headquarters. I had never been there, and I said, I want to run for office. At that time, Arizona was negative $730 million in our checking account. We were basically insolvent. We were on a servicing credit line to Bank of America to pay any teacher, fill any pothole, deliver any essential state service. You fast forward to where we are today, you also have to remember that when I was fortunate enough 4 years later to get elected governor, we were still just recovering from the recession. We had over a $1 billion deficit in the state of Arizona. Our economy was sluggish, and leaders had to make a lot of tough decisions to get Arizona going. I said I was someone who built a business, and now I wanted to shrink a government and grow an economy. That's what I ran on 4 years ago. I said, I think we can kickstart this economy. I believe we can restore K-12 education. I believe we live in the best state in the nation, maybe the last great state in America, and I want that to be our reputation across the country. And I also wanted our government to work. I wanted to see that efficiency and that delivery of services for people that needed it, and I wanted to get rid of waste that was inside. So we tightened our belt. We balanced that budget in the first year. Everybody in the media and everyone in the press said it couldn't be done without raising taxes. I want you to know, to the business people in the audience, you could have balanced that budget in 15 minutes. The tough thing was dealing with the political unpopularity of some of the decisions that needed to be made. We slashed red tape, we shut down agencies that weren't necessary, and we we eliminated 676 regulations. You know, nobody in this business ever talks about elimination. They talk about the laws they're going to pass and the policies they want to move forward, and that's a productive discussion. But there's also things that shouldn't be in government. There's things that are there for no reason. And to get rid of 676 regulations was the equivalent of a $48 million tax cut to the hardworking citizens of Arizona without costing the general fund $1. So not only were we able to balance the budget without raising taxes, we've also been able to reduce the debt load in the state of Arizona $1.4 billion. That's a reduction of 16% over the last 4 years. And with all that, our economy is booming. We've got the fastest growing county in the nation right here in Maricopa County. There's 3,144 counties in the United States of America. Go ahead and Google it. And this is the #1 fastest growing county. That's something to be proud of. 240,000 new private sector jobs. 300 companies that have relocated here. And as I said in my second State of the State, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my partner in growing Arizona's economy, and that's been California Governor Jerry Brown. This guy's unbelievable. I said to him, Governor, when you come to Arizona, people are going to chant 4 more years. We love you. Also, Arizona workers are taking home larger paychecks. We've got the 3rd fastest wage growth in the nation right now in Arizona. The last time unemployment was this low, you were renting your movies from Blockbuster. So we all know as business people that growth is a gift. And it's also a responsibility, and it's something that we want to do responsibly because you can get out over your skis. The last time we were growing this fast, I think there was a lot of irresponsible spending in state government, and it's what put us in such a tremendous hole when there was a change in the economy. So not only have we been able to make investments, we've also been able to plan ahead for a rainy day. And today we have $458 million in a reserve account earning interest. So our balance sheet is healthy in the state of Arizona, and we've been able to take these dollars from a growing economy, from bigger paychecks, and from population growth, and aim them towards the most important function inside our government, and that's been public K-12 education. Over $2.7 billion invested in K-12 education over the last 4 years. We were able to get our teachers a much-deserved and well-earned 20% pay increase by school year 2020. We passed Proposition 123, which was the settlement of a years-long lawsuit that predated my administration between the education establishment and the state legislature that resulted in $3.5 billion additional dollars over the next 10 years, constitutionally guaranteed. And like I said, with the help of leaders like Kate Brophy-McGee, we were able to extend Proposition 301, which is $667 million annually for the next 20 years. Now, I don't like to make all the talk around education just on spending. Of course, budgets are important and money is important, but we spend that money because we want to see better outcomes and results inside our classrooms. And today, Arizona students are improving faster in math and reading than any other children in the country. And I tell you that because you're not going to read that in the Arizona Republic. And you're not going to see that on any of the news stations. They like to focus, they don't cover homes that aren't burning. They don't report on planes that land safely. Somehow in this country, we have got caught into a trap of everyone wants to define the success in K-12 education by the amount of spending. Well, what other organization do we measure its success by how much it spends? If spending were the measure of success in K-12, Baltimore, Maryland, Newark, New Jersey, Chicago, Illinois, Washington, D.C., and Detroit, Michigan would be the finest K-12 education systems in the country, except they're not. They are among the worst. We are putting additional dollars in. I've made a commitment that we will put dollars above and beyond inflation because it's necessary, but we want to measure it by outcomes and results. And I applaud our hard-working teachers in Arizona for the work that they are getting done. Another thing I want to touch on, there is a teacher shortage in Arizona. There is a teacher shortage in America. There could be 48 other governors in the country that could be standing at this podium talking about the teacher shortage that they have. In Arizona, we founded the Teachers Academy. It's an academy that speaks to people at the university level. A lot of people in my graduating class in 1986 took education as a profession. They went out and populated the schools, and they've been doing it for 30 years. They've got a well-earned and deserved retirement, and they're taking it. And it's resulting in a teacher shortage in 48 of our states. We put together the Teachers Academy along with Michael Crow at ASU, Bobby Robbins at the U of A, and Rita Chang at NAU. And now if a young person makes a decision to go into education, they will graduate debt-free with a job waiting. Arizona is the only state in the country that has that. It's paying dividends already. So there's more to do on education. It's not perfect in the state of Arizona, but we have real measurable signs of progress. In addition to education, I think the number one call on any governor is on public safety. And it's something we take seriously here. I think it's part of the reason people move here. I, again, don't want to act as if we're perfect here, but if you think right now today, we're in the 5th largest metropolitan area in the country, in the middle of a desert, okay, with a clear water future ahead and without the intractable problems that you see in other major metropolitan areas. And I think it's a focus on public safety. And it really hit me in 2015 when I came into office. I was lucky. In the first month I was sworn in, Arizona hosted the Super Bowl. I think most of you remember Super Bowl 49, especially if you're a Seahawks fan. And that is the largest event held anywhere in the world. So not only are we responsible for public safety at the state level, the federal government gets involved. President Barack Obama was still president, and he sent out his Secretary of Homeland Security, a fine man named Jay Johnson. The Super Bowl came off without a hitch. It was a spectacular success from a tourism standpoint, from a safety standpoint, and from an economic standpoint. And I met with Secretary Johnson afterwards for the after-action review, and I said, can you imagine if we took the same partnership that we had on the Super Bowl to Arizona's border to focus on drug cartels and human trafficking? I actually think he liked the idea. He took it back to Washington, D.C., and it fell on deaf ears. So how did we in state government get Washington, D.C. to listen? We put together something called the Border Strike Force. That is something that is led through our Department of Public Safety. I see that we've got Colonel Frank Milstead here. Frank, will you wave so everyone knows who you are? So Frank is our law enforcement leader of that state agency, and he helped construct this border strike force that partners with the 15 county sheriffs around the state, specifically on our 4 county border sheriffs, and then local law enforcement, Nogales Police Department, Nogales Police Chiefs, Sierra Vista, etc. I want you to know with this new administration, with the Trump administration, with Secretary John Kelly, who I asked to come to Arizona, and as Secretary of Homeland Security, sure enough, true to his word, his first trip was to the state of Arizona, and Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, his replacement, has been here twice, and they have made our state and our country safer. So I want to say thank you, Colonel, for your service on the front lines. We've seized over 60,000 pounds of marijuana, 14,000 dangerous prescription drugs and capsules, 380 pounds of marijuana. That's enough for 17.2 million hits that are not in our high schools and grade schools. 68 pounds of fentanyl. That's enough to kill over 15.4 million people, twice the population of our state, 3,400 pounds of meth, 400 pounds of other dangerous drugs, 300 illegal firearms, and over 3,200 dangerous criminals and gang members have been arrested. This is something we're facing forward on in Arizona. We're going to continue to protect our state and keep it safe by aiming at drug cartels and human traffickers and bad guys. And I want to thank you for what you do, Colonel. You know, as governor, you get to meet other governors. And governors are not like the folks you see on the cable nightly news. You're never going to see two governors split screen arguing with each other. We're chief executives of our state. People in Arizona may know who Doug Ducey is, but outside of Arizona, people don't know. Same with Steve Bullock's the governor of Montana. Everybody in Montana knows him. I don't think you'd know him if he walked in the room. Steve's a Democrat, I'm a Republican, but all governors share best practices. We have a governors only meeting where people are able to share what's on their mind so you can bring those ideas home. It's a very collegial environment. This last February, we had the governors only meeting in Washington, D.C. Governor Rick Scott of Florida was our keynote. He had just got finished dealing with the aftermath of Parkland and the school shooting and massacre that happened there. After he spoke, Governor Matt Bevin talked about what they went through in Kentucky. It was almost an equally horrific event without the same coverage as Parkland, and Governor Greg Abbott in Texas. And I've thought this for some time. I mean, every morning when you're governor, you look at the news a little bit differently. And I've been able to say over these last 3+ years a silent prayer of thanks and gratitude that Arizona hasn't had one of these mass national cable news shootings. But I asked myself, why is everyone always reactive to this? Is there anything we can do proactively on school safety in Arizona? So I came back and I said to my chief of staff, I want to get a bunch of high school kids in here. I want to get a bunch of parents in here. I want to bring our law enforcement leaders in separate meetings. And I'm not delegating these meetings out. I'm going to lead them. And I don't need a bunch of staff in there. I want people to be comfortable and feel that they can speak their mind. So we conducted a bunch of those meetings with citizens, parents, law enforcement, mental health professionals, prosecutors, and basically to the kids I said, do you feel safe in school? And what does safety look like to you to feel safe? These were very productive meetings that we had with these folks, and we put together an Arizona Safe School Plan. It was a 5-point plan. The shining star of it was the stop order, the severe threat order of protection. If you'll remember what happened in Parkland, I hate to even say the guy's name, but it's been so well publicized. I want you to know that I'm talking about the person that shot all of those children. This was not a surprise to them. This was someone that had been expelled from school. This was someone that had law enforcement visit his home 39 times. This is someone that had been identified to the FBI by name. And this was someone that posted on YouTube that he wanted to be known as a school shooter. And yet the authorities said there was nothing we could do. So I didn't want that in the state of Arizona. The stop order would allow us, through due process, to have law enforcement act on a situation like that. There's other things like protecting the rights of law-abiding citizens on their Second Amendment, but also on the background checks that we've already agreed on. Dangerous and illegal violent felons that aren't allowed to purchase a firearm, domestic violence, mental health adjudications. We found out that our background check was only about 60% populated. And for a small investment, we could make sure that that is populated so that those people that aren't by law to have a gun aren't able to get it. We were able to get much of it done. We weren't able to get all of it done. But this is really why I'm running for re-election, is there's a lot more work to do in the state of Arizona. What I want to do in these next 4 years is secure Arizona's future. I want to secure our financial future and make sure in this growing economy, which shows no signs of slowing down, that we're still responsible with our spending and our investment, that we plan ahead not only for public safety, but for infrastructure, our schools, and our teachers. And I want to make sure that our neighborhoods, our schools, and our border remain safe. Those are going to be the focus of this next administration, and there's going to be a real contrast. There are some people out there that do not share my agenda. They would like to see a bigger government. They want to increase your taxes, and they've attempted to put it on this year's ballot unsuccessfully. They don't want to see regulations rolled back, and they do want to roll back the investments that we have in public safety. The opponent that I'll be facing on November 6th has publicly said that he'd like to abolish ICE, defund the border strike force, and that he does not believe in a physical barrier on Arizona's border. I think all of these ideas sound to me like a carbon copy of California. I think they're risky. I think they're radical. They don't reflect the Arizona that I know, but we'll decide that at the ballot box, as we should. You know, I think in my business, too often, people that are elected to office forget who they work for. As somebody that used to run a company that depended on the customers, I want you to know that I never will. I work for you. I work for the people in this room. I would love to do this job for 4 more years. I think we've got a momentum in the state of Arizona that is growing on itself. And with good stewardship, good leadership, and positive public policy, there isn't anything we can do in the next 4 years. Thanks for having me. I look forward to your questions.
Surprise.
Yes, Bear, bring it.
All right. I've done some work with recently with Phoenix Job Corps. I'm a contractor, just so you know. And Andy Biggs was down there. He was talking about the fact that we need about 160,000 more workers for construction work. We have a border full of people who want to work. I'm against the wall, just so you know. I think there's probably a better solution that we can spend our money on. How do I get people to do manual labor, which is the background here in Arizona, to keep things going? And how do we get them educated and keep those people safe? Because that's also important.
Sure, great question, Bear. And this is something in Arizona right now. We've got more jobs available than we have people to fill them. So what you're talking about, and I think the contractors, they've been feeling this for some time. We can't find people to frame houses. We can't find people to hang drywall. The smartest guy in my graduating class, the guy we all thought would go on and run for U.S. Senate or governor, is a guy named Alex Vakula. He ended up going to law school, and now he's a big shot, but he lives in Yavapai County. And he called me up and he said, hey, I've got an idea for you as governor. We don't need any more lawyers in the state of Arizona, so you can shut down all the law schools. He said, what we do need is we need a plumber in Prescott, Arizona, because we can't find one. So somehow 30 years ago, we got off on this track that everyone should go to college. And nothing's wrong with going to college, but it's not for everyone. There was a class when I was in high school called SHOP, and it's where a lot of people found their purpose, and they turned that purpose into a paycheck. So because of that, there is a gap in employment right now, and it's not only in Arizona. This is happening across the country because our economy, we're leading in Arizona, but it's growing across the nation. We've done a number of things. One is people that are leaving prisons, people that have paid their debt and served their time. We put together second chance centers, and these are people that know they're going to enter entry level into employment. They're available for contractors, and we can help you with that. But the real answer on this is going to be on how we handle immigration. Okay? And there's opportunity, I believe, for immigration reform. I believe it starts with border security first. I think if we would solve this issue of border security, and whether you want to use the word wall or physical barrier or fence to stop, and Bear, I'll take you down there and I'll show you how wide open and unprotected it is. We already have a physical barrier on 2/3 of our state. Okay, they don't come across where the physical barrier is. They come across where it's wide open and unprotected. And this is how the drug cartels move these dangerous drugs into our state. But to do that and then to work on people that, one, want to be in our country, want to work in our country, want to be an American, we can prioritize that. But that's both at the entry level and that's at really the highest level as well. We used to have, regardless of what shortcomings we have as a nation, the elite, the wealthy, the influential of the world still want their children educated in America. And it used to be, sometimes those children would fall in love with America and they'd want to stay here and become Americans. Well, now we send them home to wherever they came from, and they're founding companies that are competing against us in America. I think there's a lot of opportunity to fix our immigration system, and I think it begins with border security. That's a federal issue. We're working on the public safety part of it, but we can also help you with workers that are coming out of our correctional system. We've employed 650 of them to date with great reviews. Yes, sir.
Doug, Dave Howell, Wells Fargo. Just curious, I think you made a great choice in naming John Kyle to fill the seat that John McCain's death left.
Thank you, Dave.
But I'd be really curious to understand the thought process that went into that decision.
I want to say it was so important to me that we properly memorialized John McCain, that we honored him and comforted his family in the week that he passed, that I had no conversations, had no discussions. Every media outlet, not only state but national, wanted to discuss that, and I said, we're burying an American hero. And once he's at the Naval Academy and I'm back here, we're going to channel John McCain. I knew, given the void left by Senator McCain, the divisiveness in politics, not only at the state level, but at the national level, the merry-go-round that is the United States Senate right now, that there was only one person in the state that could fill that void, and it was John Kyle. So he was the one person I went to visit with. John Kyle's been very helpful to me. In many ways, he's been a mentor. You all know he served alongside John McCain for 18 years. He retired from the United States Senate without a blemish on his record, personally or professionally. When I went to visit with him, his biggest concern was how much wood was he going to cut for the upcoming winter in his cabin up north in Greer, Arizona. And I laid out the options. And I said, Senator, there's only one person that can go back there and be effective. And it's you. And I'm asking you if you'll consider it. He said he had to talk to his wife, Carol, and thank goodness he said yes, because John Kyle is the one person with the stature to go back into that Senate right now, finish up the work that needs to be done, finish up this Congress, and serve the state of Arizona. We're going to have some elections this November. We're going to have more elections in 2020. But my litmus test, if that's the right word, was I wanted to pick the best possible person regardless of politics, and that was John Kyle. He reluctantly said yes. We made the announcement at the state capitol. Then he had to go to the airport. He had to go to Sky Harbor and get on his plane. We had a staffer that joined him because they had to take the paperwork by law from the Secretary of State's office to the Secretary of the United States Senate and deliver it to Mitch McConnell and Vice President Pence for the swearing in. And our staffer came back and said, people in the airport were clapping as Kyle was passing. They were fist bumping. So I don't know that he really realized the reservoir of trust and respect and goodwill that he had with the people of Arizona. But he's back there serving us now, and it's good news for Arizona and good news for America. Thanks for pointing it out, Dave.
Good afternoon, Tom von Habsburg. I was curious if the state has any plans to widen the northern part of I-17. If you've gone up there on the weekends and then the accidents, we've done a great job widening and doing passing lanes from here to Tucson. But if anyone, and most of us have weekend places up north, the I-17 is a nightmare. Is there any plans to do anything, or are we the only people that see that?
Tom, I want you to know, Tom, I feel like I'm at a town hall in Yavapai County or Coconino County. So they've been asking this question for the past 3 years. It's the first time I've been asked it in Maricopa. The answer, of course, is yes. 4 years ago, I was in this straitjacket when I came into office. We had a deficit. Today, we're arguing about where do we spend all these additional dollars. And what I don't want to be is irresponsible, but it is a function of government to invest in infrastructure. Like you, I've made that drive over 1,000 times. And I notice in the last 4 years that it's gotten progressively worse. And as the state, the best thing that's going to help Coconino County, the best thing that's going to help Flagstaff and the White Mountains is growth in our state, because people move to our urban areas. They love Phoenix, but to me, there was nothing like Phoenix with a place in Flagstaff. So that's what's going to help feed those areas. We of course want to widen I-17. We also not only want to widen it because, God forbid, when there is a fatality, doesn't matter how wide it is, it's going to be shut down for an investigation. It's also got to have arteries and off-ramps. So those are investments that we can make and we can plan for now. We also have an administration in Washington, D.C. that wants to focus on federal infrastructure, and there's a lot of talk about an I-11 that will go from southern Arizona through Nevada to Canada, that will be the front door and crossroads for the American economy. Those are all things you can do in a growing economy, all things that just weren't on a top 10 list 5 years ago rise to a top 3 list now. Last question, if there is one. Yes?
With all of the emphasis on education, which I think we all appreciate, it's very confusing as to why bureaucracy, bureaucratic levels of education is getting so much money and the teachers in the classrooms are not. Is there anything that can be done about that?
So it's a great question, and it's a huge issue, and you're right about that. We have a growing administration, bureaucracy, and overhead, and it's part of the reason I think that the other side is going to want to use education as a dividing line on this and only talk about investment. I know that we have to make the investment, and investments have a return, but what's most important for a kid, and I've got 3 of them, is first, of course, there's nothing like a loving parent. Okay, but beyond the loving parent, when you go to school, the most important thing is the teacher at the front of the classroom. Everything else can be solved when you have the right teacher. There's been a lopsided amount of money going into administration and bureaucracy. I think the real opportunity is not only in resources, but in reforms. And how does this spending get to the classroom? Right now, it starts out at the top of the administrative state and in a sense trickles down, and the last dollars spent are in the classroom. For a kid in Arizona, it's about $9,000, $10,000 a kid, local money, state money, and federal money. So you take a class of 30, you know how to do the math there. So what do you pay the teacher? What do you pay the assistant? Where does the rest of the money go? How is it being spent? So I want to start with the funding model to begin inside the classroom and to build up. That's the reforms that would become after the resources. We knew that the education system needed resources because the Great Recession was so difficult on Arizona. Those days are behind us. 4 years ago, the biggest surprise of my adult life was being endorsed by the Arizona Republic in the primary. And they called me the governor, Arizona's governor, for tough times. We're not on tough times right now. We're growing. So those are the investments that we want to make. We know that you do need some administration, of course, inside a school, but you need a teacher in every classroom first. That's going to be our focus. I want to say thanks so much for having me. And I want to say, in this business, you get used to, you get a sense when you're getting the hook, and that's what Randy's given me. Thank you.
And we have made a donation in your name to the Salvation Army's ARC, which I think you're familiar with. We've got a guy out here, Jeff Taylor, I think you know. Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for being here today. It was great having you.
Thank you, Randy.
Yes, indeed. Your governor.